Hi everyone, we will start in 2 minutes. We are live now, 2 minutes warning.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Middle East Africa plenary session of the Gulf Intelligence Global UAE Energy Forum. My name is Diara Sabah. I'm a partner with Gulf Intelligence. It's a pleasure to be your MC and moderating some of the sessions and discussions today. Well, we're delighted to bring you to our annual forum, now in its 11th year, and under the patronage of His Excellency Suhail Al-Mazrou'i, the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure of the UAE. This year, of course, we're bringing it to you in a virtual format and therefore on a truly global scale, bringing together the foremost thought leaders from across geographies and across the energy industry to offer their insights and takeaways from what was indisputably a very challenging 2020, but more importantly, what is their outlook for the year ahead, 2021, and what's going to happen with demand, supply, GDP forecasts, and how are countries and companies going to strategize around those. We did see in the fourth quarter the oil markets and oil prices recover from their averages throughout the year. And of course, we've seen that recovery turn even more positive in the new year. In the last week or so, we've seen Brent and WTI prices rise and stay comfortably into the $50, into the 50s range. And that buoyancy, of course, was propelled at the end of last year by the positive news around the vaccines, and those are now being rolled out. But this has been tempered really in the last few days as the rollout happens with the news of a rise and surge, a second 2.0 COVID surge across the globe, even as vaccines are rolled out, and with some question marks over how effective, how quickly those vaccines can be rolled out and therefore take effect. We, ahead of this Middle East plenary session, we had our Asia plenary, and there was a consensus amongst our speakers there on a couple of points of interest. One was that real demand will not really resurface until we see evidence that these vaccines are actually taking effect, and the consensus seems to be building around the fact that that will not be possibly until the second half of 2021, if at all, and that until travel and movement really recovers, we will not see real demand emerge, and therefore any buoyancy to the oil markets. The other point that was made in the Asia session, we had a survey question, and our audience there felt that we would be averaging close to the $60 mark for Brent for the year ahead. So that's the take from Asia. In the previous session, of course, this is our Middle East plenary, and of course within that the UAE plays a primary role and will do in the year ahead, both in its leadership within Opec, and also it's going to be joining the global futures markets. And of course, we have Fujairah, which has been growing exponentially as a hub, and many more plans for that to become, to take its position as a global port. So we look forward to discussions around those points. Well, now it's a pleasure to welcome His Excellency Suhail Al-Mazrou'i, the UAE Minister of Energy and Infrastructure for the UAE, for the feature interview on the outlook for OPEC and oil supply-demand balance. And this interview will be moderated by Manas Krani, anchor at Bloomberg Television.
Minister Suhail Al-Mazrou'i, great to have you with us today. Sir, I want to get a sense from you. The OPEC Plus grouping had agreed quite a regimented, phased-in strategy, which is essentially on pause. The Saudis have a unilateral cut. I want your best vision for this phased approach beyond the end of Q1, sir.
Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you and to everyone who's watching. It has been an extraordinary year to 2020, as you know, and no matter how much you plan, you always have to have that flexibility of adjusting the plans. That's why we agreed in the first quarter to meet on a monthly basis, which is not the norm. Usually, as you know, as a group, we meet in a quarterly and sometimes every 6 months. But due to the fact that the fundamentals are changing all the time, and we're dealing with a pandemic that we never have seen before, I think we're in the recovery year, which is 2021. We need to be, as we are optimistic, we need to be also cautious. So I think the decision for the first quarter was to meet on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. We decided to go with the phased approach. Then we adjusted that in the recent meeting in January, where we decided to freeze the growth or reducing the agreed volumes and freezing it, not to introduce the 500,000 in February and the 500,000 in March. We decided to do that because of what we have seen in terms of the second or the new wave of the pandemic. And we will be, I think, the forecast for beyond the first quarter will be also to wait and see. So definitely we are meeting in March to decide, and at that meeting we will be deciding on how are we going to take it in the next 3 months beyond March.
So just in terms of confidence, because that's what the market's trying to work out. At the moment, they're doing the math. They've got the possibility of Saudi supply coming back in April and the OPEC Plus overall supply coming back. Are you confident, Minister, that the market could bear up to 1.5 million extra barrels by the end of the first quarter, beginning of April?
Well, it depends, Manis, on the vaccine, for example, rollout. There are now plans in many countries to go and vaccinate a good percentage of the people by the first quarter. And if that happens and we see a demand recovery, then I think the market can absorb it. We are not only looking at the supply and demand balance, we are also working on the inventories, the extra inventories buildup that we have seen during 2001. We are also targeting to reduce that to a normal level, which will give confidence also to the producers. So that is also another angle that we are working with.
Let's just talk about the inventories, Minister, because again, we're all talking about the 5-year average. I thought we'd left it behind, but no, we're back on the 5-year average. To get the inventories down, Minister, what is your strategy? Is it less exports to the USA and the OECD?
Well, every country has its own markets, as you know, Manas, and we are not our role as a group now, a bigger group
Yes.
of producers, is to balance the market and ensure that the market is balanced and incentivizing the investors to continue investing. We don't want to lose investors during this extraordinary year and the recovery year, because those volumes will be required. We all know in a year, 2 years, or at the end of this year, hopefully, we will be back, or even in 2022, we will be back to where we were in 2019 in terms of demand. And
can you balance the market? Do you expect to balance the market, Minister, this year in 2021?
I'm more optimistic, than the numbers, because I'm confident that this group will continue working hard in ensuring that we are balancing the market faster than what we anticipated, and we have seen the recovery, I think, better than anyone was expecting in the first, and as we are going in the first month of the year. I'm optimistic that by the end of the year or beginning of next of 2022, we will see that balance.
Now, your old friend Fatih Birol has spoken to us overnight, sir, and he said a big chunk of American shale will be profitable at the current levels. Do you expect to see more shale supply given the price action in the market?
Well, I think we have, all of the producers need to be careful, not to overflood the market. Mm-hmm. If anyone do that, then the prices will suffer, and the investors. I'm not worried about the prices per se, okay, because the prices are relative to the time. But I'm more concerned about the level of investments that all the investors need to put. I think when it comes to the shale oil, there has been challenge. They have been facing a very challenging year during 2020. From the investors' point of view, it's not going to be easy to just go and build production, not knowing that and seeing the inventory levels where they are today. So I think they have to be cautious, and I'm glad that we have always that dialogue between us and them. And don't forget that the US have contributed to the cut during in April and in May when we met with them. So I think we have to appreciate what the US producers have done, the sacrifices that they put to balance the market at a very difficult time. I think they are wise not to jump the gun and overproduce during the recovery year.
So you've cautioned now, you've sent a message here to the market about, look, don't flood this market. But the discussion with the people that I talk to say that Saudi Arabia's unilateral action, Your Excellency, opens the door perhaps to less compliance.
No, I don't think that is fair to say to Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia have been, and especially Prince Abdulaziz, have been instrumental in this new rule, which is the compensation. And we have seen countries compensating the volumes that they have not complied to, and month on month they are doing their best. So I am optimistic that the co-chairs will continue their role. We are discussing the conformity in the JMMC, and we are a member. And I would like to emphasize what UAE have done. UAE have continued to become more than 100% compliant, and we are encouraging others. And all of the messages we got from the different ministers in those countries, they are committed, and they assured the JMMC that they are committed and they are doing their best to bring to reduce those barrels that were overproduced.
The UAE, Saudi, and Iraq all managed to raise prices to Asia. I want to get a sense of how robust that demand side of the equation is geographically?
Well, as you know, China have been the first to show signs of recovery in demand, and we are working on ensuring that the confidence between the suppliers and the demand countries are there. We are in talk with them. So the idea now is to ensure that we are producing at a phased manner to cater for that demand increase. And it's not easy to predict after what we have seen in 2020. So building that into the account and looking at the fact that for example, Chinese major oil companies are now investors. So they sit with us, they are producing here in Abu Dhabi, and they are part of the producers club in that sense. So I'm confident that in Asia, whether it's China or India or the rest of the countries, we are in more talk, and hopefully we will balance that demand increase in a more predictable way than before.
Minister, can we talk about the big relationship, the OPEC Plus relationship? We've been through many dramatic meetings in Vienna and virtually. Can you give me your outlook for the OPEC Plus relationship beyond the expiry of the Pact?
Well, first of all, this relationship, I've been saying for years that my view on this relationship, it's to stay. This is not a permanent. This is not a temporary relationship. This is hopefully a permanent relationship. We have seen all that the part of the learnings that we carry on 2021 after 2021 is the fact that more producers need to work together during difficult times. The level of confidence that we build among ourselves, working together now for years, is more assuring that we will continue working in the future.
We've got 11 more meetings to go, Minister, we understand is what's on the slate. I just want to get a sense of cohesion as we jump into 2021, because there's a three-way split, isn't there? There's those who stood pat, there's Saudi that can't, and there's token rises for Russia and Kazakhstan. Is the cohesion robust within the OPEC Plus alliance?
I think it is. We all agreed that due to the winter months in Kazakhstan and in Russia, it has been difficult, and they have demonstrated that it's very difficult for them to not to increase the production to cater for that demand increase locally, and that led that all of us agreed to give them a slack for those 2 months, and I think the Saudi Arabia with their generosity have put enough volumes to compensate for that. So if you look at the deal, if they were in versus the deal we have now in terms of cutting production, we're significantly above the level of the cut that both Kazakhstan and Russia have to put in. So I think the trust among us, the cohesiveness of the decision making have been there, and we have done it all convinced rather than pushed.
So we talked about balancing the market. I want to get a sense from you in terms of when can we expect OPEC to recover perhaps the market share that it gave up last year?
Well, now the focus is on the balancing of the market. We're not looking at it from a market share point of view. We are the lowest cost producers as OPEC countries and many of the OPEC Plus as well. So we know that for a fact that when situations are normal, we can easily get to the market share that is normal for this group. I'm not worried, to tell you the truth, Manas, about the market share now. We we are at an environment where we either balance the market, incentivize investors to continue investing, and assure ourselves 2 years, 3 years from now, we have enough hydrocarbon and enough supply, or we don't do it. If every country is looking at its market share, then we will not balance the market. And UAE is an example. We have an installed capacity of more than 4.2 million barrels, but look at us working with the group and cutting significantly from that volume.
Minister, let's square away one of the biggest issues. You're about to launch your Murban contract, the futures exchange. A lot has been written. To make a success of that over the next number of years, to allow it to come to fruition, Minister, do you think about a world of where the UAE might need more flexibility, perhaps outside the OPEC relationship, to make that a success?
Well, first of all, Manas, we look every country in this deal. They look at their benefits, and I think we are convinced that our benefits is with the group. So we are committed. We are an active member of the group. The future, of course, will carry on surprises, as you know, in this field. I'm confident that these investments that we put and the type of oil and the efficiency improvement that ADNOC have done will enable us to compete and will enable us to put those volumes, because there will be needed.
So you remain squarely inside the family.
Yes, I think even the whole group, not only UAE, will be able to tap into the market and put those volumes, because at the end of the day, it's the cost of production that you need to work on, and it's the demand and the demand recovery beyond once we are off this pandemic is way above what we are producing today.
Minister Suhail Al-Mazrouei, we wish you well with the Gulf Intelligence Forum. Enjoy, sir. We thank you for your time, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to participate to the as part of the Global UAE Energy Forum 2021, and thank you very much for the coverage.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask my technical director to unblock my video, but I hope you can all hear me. Thank you very much to His Excellency Suhail Al-Mazrouei and to Bloomberg Television. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Sean Evers, Managing Partner at Gulf Intelligence, who is going to moderate the first panel session for us in this segment. Over to you, Sean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diala, and thank you to His Excellency and to Manas for their in-depth interview. It's always very useful to get a full insight from the minister, such an integral player in the OPEC Plus group, and the direction of travel for that group in the year ahead. It's a very exciting year for the UAE on many levels, and most notably with the introduction of the IFAD, the ICE Futures Abu Dhabi Exchange, in March. And so it's our next two guests that are playing a critical role in that. Mr. Khalid Salmeen, Executive Director of Marketing, Supply and Trading from ADNOC. Khalid, if you wouldn't mind, please opening your camera and your microphone. And Mr. Stuart Williams, President, ICE Futures Europe Intercontinental Exchange. Thank you, Stuart and Khalid, for joining us today and sort of getting on to the outlook for this important development this year. Khalid, perhaps we can kick off with you on this question. This has been a big journey, obviously, to get to this point. There's no doubt, and the sort of trophy is just in the distance now in March. I suppose the overarching question ultimately is, given the perseverance through a COVID pandemic, through regulations and all sorts of great challenges, What is so attractive about the prospect of a Murban futures contract for ADNOC?
Well, thank you, Sean. And first of all, I would like to wish all of you a happy and a safe 2021. And I hope we are less virtual as we go through this year. But for the time being, I think this is the wise thing to do. So please continue to take care.
Thank you.
Murban obviously has been at the heart of ADNOC since its inception back in 1958. So it's been a while. And it continues to be our flagship crude. It is a crude that is well known to our customers, and it is very diversified in multiple ways and multiple dimensions. One, it has multiple customers across all of Asia. It has multiple ownership, i.e. Murban's ownership is in the hand of multiple producers under ADNOC Onshore as a part of the JV, which sell it into the market through literally 7 different companies. So it's not controlled by one company, i.e. ADNOC, but actually Total, BP, Chinese, as well as South Korea and so on. So we have multiple ownership and liquidity, physical liquidity coming into the market through that. And I think the prospect of a Murban futures contract is really exciting because, one, given these elements, it allows the market to have a market-driven pricing for a special grade, such as Murban being a light crude that is mostly towards Asia. It allows that flexibility to our customers to make sure that they manage their risk. And we believe that it also gives better attractiveness to our ever-changing landscape. So generally, we believe it is the right move. It is becoming more customer-centric, and it gives the suite of activities and tools for our customers, our partners, to move away from the retroactive pricing that was experienced for a long period. And now that we are in the forward pricing, to be fully market-driven forward pricing with all the bells and whistles. So we're really, really excited about it. And I hope that everyone actually supports it.
And Khalid, just as a quick follow-up, ultimately, what does it deliver to ADNOC that the current or previous pricing structure or the market pricing references that were available did not do? What is it for ADNOC? Obviously, we can see for the markets and for your partners, but for ADNOC, ultimately, what is the driving value incentive?
We believe we are a part of a value chain. And Murban is one crude out of a basket of crudes that every refiner in the world ends up having to make a selection on a monthly basis, quarterly basis on what they want. So for us, it is important to make sure that we do not, we actually enable this crude to continue to be competitive in the market. And to do so, we need to give it the tools that will allow it to be as competitive. The retroactive pricing mechanism comes with some major disadvantages. We are away from that era. Yet at the same time, it gave for a very long time the stability and the market position and the trust. So I think now that we have 50 years on our belt in ADNOC, the relationship with our customers, that trust relationship that is there, is moving into a new era as we transform into a market-driven pricing mechanism. And for us, it's all about getting our partners who have invested significant amount of money with us, who believe in Abu Dhabi and ADNOC. To us, this is actually the main value addition. That is the secret sauce, if you say, about ADNOC, is the fact that we're able to work with partners in our upstream, downstream, to deliver value. And to do so, we believe that a market-driven price enables us to be much more transparent to the market and our partners on how this very important commodity is priced.
Thank you. Stuart Williams, welcome, President, ICE Futures Europe. This all sort of rests on your shoulders in a way. We all have our wish list. You're Santa Claus. How will the contracts ultimately provide the transparency and arbitrage that the market's looking for?
Thank you, Sean, and appreciate the opportunity to join and just to add my Happy New Year to everybody. Thankfully, Sean, this doesn't rest entirely on my shoulders. We've got some very strong partners that we've pulled together. And so really this is about, and markets are about bringing the best of various people's strengths to the table. So we're bringing together the Murban grade and ADNOC strength in the market that Khaled has just been talking about, the strength of our partners. We're bringing the global distribution of the ICE network, capital efficiencies of a clearing house that clears all of our global oil franchise, together with a financial community that's active on the ICE platform already. So there are a number of shoulders involved here, Sean, which I'm very grateful for. But to your question, of course, futures markets are by design the most democratized and accessible market structure. And so what we're doing here is we're bringing this grade of Murban, this physical grade that's used by such a broad range of physical players in Asia. We're putting that alongside the globally distributed benchmarks that we already host on the ICE platform. And that'll effectively put Murban pricing on the desktop of every oil trader that's currently using the ICE platform, which is a very powerful proposition. And so in terms of transparency, by their nature, futures markets are transparent. Putting that alongside the ICE distribution network, it means that the distribution of that transparency is going to be significant. And I think from if we look back over 2020, one of the lessons that was reinforced to all of us was the importance of the ability to access real-time pricing for risk management and executable liquidity as markets are moving about. And so that's what we're looking to bring to the table with this launch.
Stuart, in terms of the journey, obviously we just mentioned with Khaled the big journey that has been made. I remember when we were all together launching this in October or November 2019 at ADIPEC. Seems like multiple lifetimes ago for multiple different reasons than this. But nonetheless, it's been a big journey. Where are we at exactly with the vis-a-vis of the regulatory approvals and all of the plumbing, if you like, that goes into setting up the new exchange, the new contract?
Yeah, Sean, I think when we were sitting together last in I think it was November of 2019, there's no ways we would have foreseen the events of this year. But notwithstanding all of that's been going on this year, we've made very good progress, particularly on the regulatory front, across the board. But on the regulatory front, we've now received approval from the Bank of England in the UK, which is a big milestone, and we're very excited about that. We've also received the approval from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So that means that's also done, and of course these go alongside a number of the approvals we received last year that we've announced. So that includes Abu Dhabi Global Markets, the US, Switzerland, and we've also completed the relevant analysis for other jurisdictions like the Netherlands, France, Norway, Australia, Japan, South Korea. So the number of jurisdictions that people will be able to access ICE Futures Abu Dhabi and the Murban contract from day one is growing. And we've got all of these other major jurisdictions now added in. So very good progress made there. In respect of everything else, from a technology perspective, we're ready to go. The distribution network, as I referred to earlier, from an ICE perspective, adding Murban to that is ready to go. And now we're working very closely with the clearing community that will manage the positions at the clearinghouse. And the trading community as well. We've seen a lot of interest from both of those communities and good progress being made on that. So everything's lining up well for that launch at the end of March.
Well, congratulations on that. Those approvals, very, very obviously the biggest steps, I suppose. Khaled, that leads to the ultimate question, I suppose. And what does success look like, do you think, or as a measure against the ability to attract liquidity? We can get all the approvals, we can get the market open, but what do you think success looks like from a liquidity perspective, and particularly from an Asia adoption?
Yeah, and I think this is really the heart of the discussion, right? So liquidity and depth of curve and are the real KPIs on this. I think from a perspective of what we need to do, I think we have all the key success ingredients. So we have, the 11 partners, including all continents, all different communities. Asia is represented, trading community is represented, IOCs are represented. Obviously, the equity holders are all represented. And we have, at the same time, a lot of our customers. So a lot of our customers are already been engaged through this whole process. That continues to ramp up as we go in Q1. We have the right exchange, that being a credible exchange, being with ICE. We have the technology and the distribution network that Stuart was referring to earlier. At the same time, this is a commodity in Murban that has multiple owners. So it is not owned by ADNOC alone, but it's owned by 7 partners that have their own lifting rights and they sell their own product. Yet at the same time, there are multiple buyers. So it's not going to one destination. It's very diverse in its adoption across all of Asia. And it has an excellent infrastructure to deliver the physical contract or the physical quantities, with a lot of redundancies that was audited and given the highest standards of compliance and tolerance management. So from that perspective, I believe that we have all the key ingredients to have success. Obviously, we've also had multiple MOUs signed and were announced, both from producers and traders that would be participating, helping in pricing, using the Murban futures contract in delivering crude of similar qualities to Asia. So I think all in all, we have the right ingredients. What is the right EDV? It's anybody's guess, but definitely having an ability to have the right level of liquidity to be able to get in and out seamlessly, allowing it for physical and non-physical players, and allowing for all of that transparency is going to be key. And it is at the center of our focus to make sure that as we go to the world's launch, that all of that as a part of our communication plan is covered.
Stuart, one of the sort of interesting changes in the world as a whole inevitably is energy exports out of the US, oil and gas into Asia, into Europe as well on the LNG side. ICE has signed contracts with Chevron, Trafigura, and Occidental to price Murban crudes as a benchmark for US moving from the US crude moving into Asia. I'm just wondering, how do you think that move highlights the importance of the US in terms of the crude market?
Yeah, well, there's no question that the US producers have become an important part of the global crude market. The minister early on was talking about the same thing. And we are seeing across the board discussions on what is the right pricing mechanism for US exports, and particularly, again, highlighted through some of the events of 2020.
And typically, just for the audience point of view, just sorry, the WTI is historically the benchmark reference for US crude, because inevitably it's been a landlocked oil, but in recent years, of course, it's become a major exporter, and it's up for grabs as to how that's going to be priced.
That's correct. And what we see is that once crude hits the water in the US Gulf Coast, it prices with reference to the Brent complex or to an instrument that's related to Brent. And so again, from a strategic perspective, putting Murban alongside the Brent complex, putting Murban in an exchange and a clearing infrastructure that provides the offsets against the Brent complex makes that a really viable pricing alternative for crude that gets exported from the US Gulf Coast into Asia. So, again, and I think the other point to make on this one is that from a quality perspective, Murban, compared with other Asian grades, or with other Middle Eastern grades going to Asia, is closer in quality to Brent and to WTI. So from a pricing perspective, if one thinks about how you manage the arbs between the various locations and what instruments you use to manage that, we do see Murban as being an attractive instrument, not just for those Middle Eastern exports to Asia, but indeed for crude moving from the US Gulf Coast out to Asia. So that was the logic behind speaking with those US exporters, and we'll continue to speak to them about how we make that happen. I think again, all of those guys are active, and many other US producers are active on the ICE platform, and getting them involved in the activity on that contract will all contribute to what we were talking about earlier about building the liquidity and the global usefulness of this as a price marker.
And just on that, Stuart, just from a point of view of the specific, we're still on target for the end of March. What do you just remind the audience the specific dates, etc.?
That's correct. So the exchange and Murban futures, of course, with it will launch on the 29th of March. So that's a Monday. The Murban contract will track the same trading hours and trading calendar as the other global benchmarks. So when Brent or TI are open, Murban will be open. So it'll start trading on a Monday morning at the 29th.
Thank you. Khaled, just in wrapping up, of course, this is not the only thing you're doing. In the midst of all of this, you're also just launched ADNOC Global Trading, which is another obviously part of your jigsaw puzzle. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, how the first few months have gone, and how does these pieces fit into the wider ADNOC strategy in terms of that idea of chasing the last dollar that's in the barrel in terms of the efficiency?
I think, and it all stems from the transformation that His Excellency Dr. Sultan has led over the last 5 years, right? So that transformation is about transforming how we do business, how we are commercially driven and customer-centric. And to me, the move into trading, obviously we launched ADNOC Trading, our crude book, as well as ADNOC Global Trading, which is our products, both in 2020 under really difficult conditions, but gladly that we were able to pull that through. And I think what it does, it offers actually our customers a lot more optionalities, pricing optionalities, services, being financing services, financial structuring or structured finance, or even just pricing mechanisms and hedging and so on. So
and of course, the financial ecosystem that has to wrap around that.
Absolutely. So it's not really only about getting more dollar. Obviously, that will always be every commercially driven entity's point of view, is to stretch the value from every barrel that we produce, that we refine, that we sell, that ship, and we trade. And we continue to do that. But doing that has to be with real value. And that is really the perception here, is how can you create multiple value for our customer using these tools? And I believe that continues to be our focus now. How does that change the business? Personally, I think it actually enhances the relationship, because today we're offering our existing customers pricing options of things that we couldn't do only months ago. And that only strengthens the relationships, even within our own value chain, given the partnerships that we have. So truly, all in all, I believe it's the great move for us. It's going well, and I look forward to how it contributes in 2021.
Well, if you see how big a factor it played in the performance of the international energy companies last year, the trading units were critical to supporting their progress through that very difficult pandemic. So I'm sure it'll bring great value added for ADNOC and your partners. Thank you very much, Khaled Salmin. Stuart Williams, thank you very much for your participation from London. I'm now going to ask you both to sort of switch off your cameras and sound and invite my colleague Manas Krani to come back on the virtual stage for his feature interview with the national Nigerian energy company. Manas, over to you.
Sean, thank you very much, everybody. It's great to be part of the Gulf Intelligence Forum. Well done, Sean and the team, putting everything together and bringing together a pretty cracking lineup. So Sean Aziala, well done on that. How are we doing in terms of visuals? Let's welcome to the virtual stage Mele Kyari, NNPC Group Managing Director. He joins me now. Mele, if you are there, let's just...
Yes, I'm with you, Manas.
Mele, how are you? Great to see you this morning. Colourful as ever, sir.
Thank you. Great to see you today.
Great to have you with us. Mele, we've got a very global oil audience here today, and so it's good to get a sense from you. We're on the longest run up in this market in 2 years. Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Yes, indeed. It's tough, and I think the short way of putting it is to say it's tough. The road ahead is also tough and difficult. As you can see clearly, every permutation around what the demand and the supply will look like has kind of not straight and not easy to understand by all. But what is obvious today is that demand will pick up, not to the levels that we'll all expect. I do not see demand coming back to the pre-COVID level in anywhere earlier than the end of 2022. That's very unlikely because of several things that are going on today. New habits have come up, irrespective of whether or not we are through with the COVID-19. There are habits that people won't change anymore. Transportation needs have changed. People have learned how to work virtual. People have stopped going to work just by choice, not just by COVID anymore, COVID inspired. So I see a clear decline, particularly in transportation fuel consumption, and especially in form of the aviation fuel consumption. This is very difficult to come back. But the other part of it is that, new developments are coming up in the sense that you're seeing a new middle class coming up in many countries, including my country and West Africa and Africa for that matter. You're seeing greater urbanization that is not foreseen. You see a number of cities are growing, a number of people are coming out of poverty, and that means more and more demand for energy, either in form of transportation fuel or other forms of fuel requirements. So we see that will balance out for the natural decision that people have made not to come up. So I see a situation where some level of marginal increase at the end of this year, but certainly not beyond.
Okay, but this is pushing the reset in demand or the reattainment of pre-COVID levels out to the back of 2022. So let's just consider some of the risks here. I caught up with Sahil Al-Mazrui, His Excellency, here in the UAE. We listened to him. He had a warning, a very clear warning over to the shale producers: do not pump. Do you expect, or do not pump at will, I should say. Do you expect a lot of shale supply to return at these prices, Mele?
Because the shale supplies clearly won't do well below a $45 oil. We're beyond the $35 oil, so there's really need a great incentive for the shale oil to come back on the deck. But the shale oil producers are also aware that this situation is not long-term. There are a number of capacities that are shut in today from the non-shale sources that can be easily kicked into the market. And if that happens, you lose money. So nobody wants to lose money. So they'll be very cautious. Without any caution by His Excellency, that response from the shale producer will be very, very marginal.
So let's talk about the OPEC Plus deal, Mele, because it's got significant significance for Nigeria. OPEC Plus more or less on pause, Saudi 1 million barrels unilateral cut. What does the pause button mean for you at NNPC and Nigeria?
It's a very convenient balance for us because, first of all, you may be aware that by mid of April, Nigeria was able to attain crude oil and condensate production of up to 2.49 million barrels per day. That's huge, looking at our capacity. But that now is now down to close to 1.6 million barrels, including the condensate production. A substantial decrease in our capacity, obviously translating to a drop in government revenues. But we're also aware that when you take it to the market and you sell it like water, that's not what you want to do. And obviously the OPEC Plus understanding that to cut the production is the right thing to do because that market balance is required by all, including the consumers. So we see a challenge to our revenue sources, but we see a better picture of getting the best out of this situation by complying with this. So for us as a country, it's a balanced situation. We're very happy to.
Can I ask you there in terms of the compliance? Your number for this quarter, January through to March, is 1.517 million. Mele, are you confident that you're going to remain compliant? You will hit compliance in this quarter?
Absolutely. We're actually at some over compliance level in November. I'm sure that the data shows that. So we have no difficulty remaining compliant. What we are doing different today is to increase our sources of condensate supply, which is necessarily not curtailed by the OPEC Plus cut. So that's where we're going. We're looking at new assets that can produce more condensate into the market.
What sort of scale of condensate do you expect then to produce this year?
Yeah, today we're at 270 to 350,000 barrels per day.
Okay, and where can I get
between these two numbers?
Okay, compensation cuts. Can you update the market in terms of the compensation cuts, maybe that you've been asked to do, or those that you have delivered, sir?
That's the point I made. We're already in conformity, including the compensation cuts. That's the point I was making.
Okay, my apologies on that. I want to pivot to the big story, which is the new US administration, the new Biden administration. Now, I know you and I have had chats, cups of tea, you give me the odd hat, and you said, look, we're keen to engage with the Biden administration. What does that mean? And what do you think Biden is going to mean for the oil industry?
Yes, for us, we're very conscious of the disposition of the Biden administration, which is not different from what we want to do and where we are going, which is to pay attention to the environment, making sure that oil is a benefit and not a cost to anyone, particularly for developing countries. And there are rooms for doing that, especially by reducing flares in many oil-producing countries, reducing our carbon footprint, which is exactly what we are trying to do today in our country. We have deep engagement with the Department of Energy to support us in carrying out some infrastructure projects that are clearly designed to bring down carbon footprints in our country. So we're very excited to work with them to making sure that those initiatives which are clearly designed to cut down carbon footprints of our business, and also to ensure that in most of these resource-dependent countries, including our own, where attention to infrastructure, getting people out of it is very primary to global peace and security. So we know that the Biden administration will support us in that direction.
Okay, so that frames how you want to engage with the administration. What the market wants to get a sense is from you and the people that you talk to. The Biden administration, do you expect the Biden administration to be as warm to global oil and energy as Trump was last summer?
Yes, indeed, in a different perspective, because I'm very convinced that the Biden administration will be interested in carrying out projects and production that will reduce carbon footprint. And that's what we're doing.
Obviously, all eyes are going to be on whatever Biden does with Iran and the JCPOA in terms of rejoining that agreement. Do you think that sets up a tougher job for OPEC Plus if Biden re-enters the JCPOA and we look at more Iranian barrels?
It's all likelihood is that we can have a better situation today managing those relationships. That's our hope and our expectation, so that the market itself can balance.
Now, compliance is probably the burning issue. You've confirmed where you stand on that. With the deal that some would say is helping the market tighten, prices are rising, we're ramping higher. Do you think overall that there's a risk of compliance fatigue with this kind of a rally on our hands?
It's very unlikely, because for many countries, including my country, compliance is the obvious choice that we have to make. And of course, managing reservoirs, as we all know, is not what you can just change your mind and you cut down production tomorrow and come back the next day. So as a matter of technical consideration, that that you need a transition to get out of this. So I'm not sure anyone will bother to worry about non-compliant, because compliance serves our interest today and also our technical interest.
Tell me this, we caught up with His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, and he said this was a sovereign unilateral decision to cut 1 million barrels a day. After that, did the Saudis communicate with the various members, perhaps that were less than compliant last year, and put a bit more pressure and say, look, we've done this, please make sure you comply?
We don't have any issue with that, because we're already compliant, so there's really nothing to ask.
What's the biggest risk, Mele? Well answered. You're at the front of the classroom there on that. What's the biggest risk, Mele, for 2021?
2021 is getting people to get back to work in the normal way, which is very, very unlikely, and it will affect our business, globally. And getting back to work means, getting back to workplace. Workplaces are now challenged, and most people don't want to go back to the workplaces. So, and also that also means that people don't want to travel. Travel is very weak. Therefore, you are going to have shortening in demand, both in transportation fuel and in aviation fuel, and that's a big challenge for our industry.
But isn't this the essence of what we need to grapple with, Mele, which is the long-term trends that will develop. We don't know what they are, but you've mentioned mobility now 3 times in this engagement. Is that where you see the biggest outcome post-COVID?
Yes, it is, because, and that's why we saw that challenge and difficulty that the world and our business will face. So we're going to gas. We're going to do more gas, and that will solve the puzzle, because you can take gas to homes easily without coming out of your houses.
So where does that put us in the energy evolution story? If you think of the audience that's tuned in here today, we're trying to work out whether Bernard Looney's got it right at BP, and whether the rest of them should be catching up. So what does it do to the energy transition story in that case?
You'll see more presence of gas in the energy mix as we go forward, much faster than all the forecasts that you have seen. And that's where everybody's going. The market is showing that. And we're also taking that direction, and we're increasing our gas domestic and also export production very seriously. Everybody's doing that.
Mm.
So whoever is not in gas today will be out of business, very likely.
How do you see the OPEC Plus institution evolving at the end of this agreement? What do you think happens next?
If you mean the non-OPEC Plus members becoming members of OPEC, that's not necessary because it's really informed interest of the global market for that balancing to take place. So you probably end up seeing more members in this platform and participating in this quota business, probably including the United States business.
You think the US will come into OPEC Plus?
It's possible in a different way.
In what way? Let's pursue that. You can't throw me that, Mele, and then not expect a follow.
Yeah, the way to do is for the US businesses, our partners, for example, the large producers in the United States will see that when you produce more into the market that cannot take your production, you're better off reducing that production. So you don't have to announce that you're part of any coalition, you will just reduce your production.
Can I just spring the other way, which is, just bear with me, which is you, Nigeria, want more freedom, as I asked Sahil Al-Mazrui. Could you see a construct of where Nigeria steps out of OPEC and lives in the OPEC Plus world?
They're one and the same thing today, because it's all about balancing the market and making sure the production supply doesn't exceed demand. And it's the same business, so there will be no incentive for Nigeria or any country to leave the OPEC basket.
Thought on this. It's about balancing the market and investment, and you talk about the long-term implications. Just to get a sense from you on this, what's the challenge for Nigeria, you think, and the West African energy investment from geopolitics? And I suppose, Mele, what I mean there is the instability that COVID has brought to geopolitics. How will that play into the bigger investment narrative for Nigeria and West Africa, sir?
What we see today is we see it as an opportunity here. Nigeria has the largest reserve of oil and gas in the whole of Africa. Not only that, in Africa today, you have a very, very fast growing middle class. Economies are expanding, populations are growing. And of course, also Nigeria is very centrally placed in the geopolitics of Africa in terms of distance to market and distance to consumption. Consumers. So we see this as an opportunity for producing more oil, becoming the hub for petrochemicals and for refining, so that the supply to West Africa comes from Nigeria and most of African countries. So we see for us as a country as an opportunity. We don't see it as a difficulty that is creating. We're already seeing that opportunity. A number of partnerships are going on, and a number of large-scale gas projects are going on, a number of participation and engagements are going on between us and some of our partner countries. And everybody's looking forward to us to see to fill that gap of distance which exists in the market today, where refineries all over the world are shutting down, and where is that supply going to come from? And that is where we're going. In 2 to 3 years to come, we'll be a net exporter of petroleum in the sense that will dominate the market and will possibly reverse the flow of trade from Nigeria to other countries.
Mele, time has run against us. I would have liked to have got 1 or 2 more questions in, but the clock ticks down. It's great to see you. I have it on great assurity that I am getting a new hat from you. Sean has been measured for his, and I'm sure he'll pass along his measurements at the end. I expect mine in the post. Look, fantastic to get this opportunity to talk to you, Mele, today. Mele Kyari, NNPC, Group MD there. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the GI conference. A great lineup. And my thanks to you, sir. My thanks to Sean Evers and the GI Institution. Sean, are you there? Come in, Sean Evers. Come in, Diala.
I am here. I am here. Thank you very much to Manus Krani from Bloomberg TV. Thank you so much. And Mr. Chiari also, thank you very much for that insight. Well, we're going to now move on to the Aramco Trading New Silk Road CEO of the Year Awards session. The Aramco Awards are in their 4th year, and they recognize individuals for outstanding achievement in advancing the interconnectivity along the route from Africa through the Middle East and to Asia, the New Silk Road, and are recognized for their vision in transforming energy system. On that, we have been delighted to already have 2 winners at the forum already today, and it's a pleasure now to welcome Captain Musa Murad, Managing Director of the Port of Fujairah, to introduce the winner of the Aramco Trading Award for Storage. Thank you very much, Captain Musa, and welcome. If you'd like to turn on your microphone and your camera, please, Captain Musa. Do we have Captain Musa?
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Fantastic. Good. Welcome. Yeah. And if you can switch on your camera, please.
Yes,
Captain
I will
Musa.
do. I will do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, Happy New Year for everybody. As usual in UAE, when we started with the COVID, started with stay at home for March and April last year, and today we're telling take your vaccine. The UAE is the government of UAE. We are pleased to have the second after State of Israel taking the vaccine. So 9% of the people taking the vaccine. The plan 50% to do so. Thank you. This is my pleasure to introduce the winner of 2020 Aramco Trading New Silk Road CEO of the Year, the category of the storage, Mr. Robert Nice, Chief Executive Officer, VTT Energy. Robert Nice began his career at the Van Omran in 1992. As a finance trainee in the vegetable oil terminal in Rotterdam. He was appointed a finance director in 1995 before moving to Singapore in 1998 as the regional controller of Asia Pacific. He then assumed the same role of WOBAC made between Van Omran and Pact. In 2002, he appointed as the Vice President Business Development and Account Manager for the company Asia Division. In January 2004, he became a CEO of WOBAC Oil Terminal Rotterdam. In September 2005, President of the Oil Europe and Middle East Division. Robert Knight joined the VTTI in the 1st October 2000 as COO. Before I end Robert's introduction, let me to speak about little bit about the VTTI. VTTI started in Fujairah in 2007 with a 460,000 cubic meter and around 20 tanks. In 2009, they added 560 cubic meters of storage capacity. And in 2006, they added another 430,000 cubic. Today, VTTI Fujairah have 52 tanks with a total of 1.2 cubic meter. VTTI handle crude oil. The VTTI advantage that they play in this region, what is the requirement of the region? So they're dealing to handle crude oil, MGO, fuel oil, naphtha, and jet. The yearly throughputs around 11 to 12 million tons. And they're still cooperating with the port how they can add LNG, LPG, And also they are discussing what they hydrogen. So they are so advanced what they can do in the region of Fujairah. And in 2019, ADNOC bought 10% share in VTTI group. So let me all of you remain to stay to Mr. Nice is very devising reception of his this year award in the storage category. Congratulations, Mabruk, Zajan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm getting now passed by Mr. Musa the award. Thank you for handing it over to me, Captain Musa. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Diala, if I'm allowed to speak a few words on this. Firstly, Captain Musa and the jury, I'd like to express my thanks and gratitude for receiving the Aramco New Silk Road CEO Award. And I'm honored, obviously, on behalf of VTTI to accept the award. For people that don't know us that much, we are still a relatively young company. The day that you mentioned that I started with VTTI was also the day that we started VTTI. I was the first employee in the company in 2006. And in these past 14 years, thanks to a great relationship that we have developed with our customers, but also with governments, with ports like the Fujairah port, and our owners, Vitol, ADNOC, and IFM, we have really been able to build a strong network of terminals, 17 now worldwide, with highly qualified people in strategic locations. And location is in everybody's mind when you talk about infrastructure like terminals. And we are very, let's say what sets us apart, we are very customer-centric, obviously safe, professional, and like you said, we're always looking at the next step of sustainable development. Never happy and complacent with what we are today, but looking what's next around the corner and how do we need to kind of anticipate on that. The terminal in Fujairah, like you mentioned, has been one of the first terminals that we bought in 2007. I remember the day that I met you in the office in Fujairah, which was great at the time. And it's also a great example of how, and in this case, under the leadership of Siavash Ali Shapoor, who has been a great leader for us in the United Emirates, and together with our partners, we have been able to grow the business and create a flexible and a very efficient combination of terminals and processing units. Because I think we should not forget that in our case, we have been very fortunate that we have had the benefit of Vitol revamping the processing unit, and also a very bold step by Uniper many years ago to start another processing unit at the site. And like you say, Captain Musa, we're always looking what is next that we can help the development of Fujairah with, and obviously also prosper as a company being VTTI. So many thanks, the jury and Captain, for the recognition, and looking forward to a great further cooperation in Fujairah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Captain Musa for the presentation, and congratulations, Rob. Thank you, Captain Musa. We can ask you to switch off your camera, please, now, but do stay tuned in. Rob, thank you so much, and congratulations on that very well-deserved award. We have a few minutes now to sort of discuss the storage outlook that VTTI may have for the year ahead. Just a quick note to get from you first on how your company managed last year, obviously an exceptional year, but arguably a good one overall for storage with the backwardation. With the contango that we saw for the majority of the year, but that obviously began to dissipate and switched to a backwardated market as we saw the year end, and now you're looking forward to perhaps more emphasis on that. So just tell us just briefly how the company fared last year, how you coped, and your outlook going forward now with this backwardation in the market, and how you see the company strategizing around that.
Yes, so thank you, Diala. It's good to note because everybody always talks about contango being good for terminal companies. It's only good if you have contracts that need to be renewed. If your contracts are there, then there is not a lot of benefit that you can gain from that. We were in a very fortunate position that already in March, April, that we had quite a few contracts coming up for renewal. And yes, like as per expectation almost then, we have been able to benefit from the contango structure because we could indeed extend contracts, renew contracts at better rates. But even in hindsight, we're now in January 21, looking back over the year, we haven't seen a dramatic change in flow, the throughputs. They still kept kind of roughly the same as 2019. Yes, we have seen a lot of stock building through our sites globally. And we see quite a bit of destocking as we speak now, also in line with the earlier speakers on the backwardation. But so we have had a good year. Throughputs were okay, but we haven't had excess throughputs like you typically see as the cream on the cake in our industry. You do your normal throughputs, and if you get a little bit extra at the end of the year, that gives you a bit more revenues. We haven't seen that worldwide, and that was also as expected because that is the backdrop of a contango that people just don't move the products that much. If you look.
And just to still looking at 2020, of course, at the beginning of last year, the focus was all on the IMO new directive to drop the sulfur cap, obviously, in bunker fuel.
Yes.
And that was, by all intents, a successful start, but faded into the background, perhaps, as everything else took over on the news last year. But how did the market cope with that in terms of blending, etc., and the opportunities there, given what COVID and the pandemic brought on demand and the structure of the market?
Yes, indeed. Pre-COVID, everybody was, let's say, everybody was talking about IMO. That was the central theme. We haven't heard a lot about it, but there was a lot of expectation that marine gas oil would be coming in quite heavily. We haven't seen that, and we were betting our horses on the horse of the IMO. So we needed to do the very low sulfur fuel oil. So we have done quite a big adjustments in terms of infrastructure in our terminals. Obviously in the Rotterdam area, in Fujairah, and in the Singapore region. And if you see, I have the numbers in front of me because I would forget otherwise, is that you see in Rotterdam around 50% of the bunker fuels were low sulfur fuel oil and not marine gas oil. So, and we have seen the same in Panama and Singapore, for example, that was 70 to 75%. So I think that has been a trend that was supported by the infrastructure that you needed to have in play. And for storage companies, that gives a fantastic opportunity because blending means more components means more capacity, more infrastructure, and more services. So in a way, if this continues for the next few years, we need to see how it all moves with the scrubbers installation as well on the vessels. But if this continues, it's a nice add-on for terminals. Also, not only blending from an IMO perspective, I think one of the things that we see in different parts of the world, less so still in the Middle East, but certainly in Europe, is biofuels. And I think that's a next step that we are looking forward to also in other parts of the world to expand in. That gives great opportunities for terminals to firstly carve out niche sectors in your infrastructure to host the biofuels, but also gives fantastic blending opportunities going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the whole idea of increasing capacity, changing the different facilities that companies like you would do in the long run. That's obviously not a short-term possibility, that's long-term planning. But in terms of the flexibility short-term for companies like yours to take advantage of or to continue to be able to add value and take, look at the opportunities that the market structure is offering. Looking forward to 2021, let's assume this backwardation continues. Where does that put you as a company in terms of where you put your focus on various blended products and will you be caught off guard or are you prepared?
Well, I would not say I would be caught off guard because my shareholders are also listening, but no, we are obviously prepared. And firstly, I think it's good to note, we never built infrastructure for the structure of the market. We never built a terminal for contango because then you lose out the most part of the year. And we build our terminals because there's a functional need for blending, for imports, for break bulk, make bulk. And therefore, we haven't seen any massive impact. Also in the past, when there was after the super contango, we got into the backwardation on our business results. Mostly our business results are impacted if you see in certain regions overbuilt and there is a pricing pressure, but not necessarily in flow. But to your point on looking forward, I do believe, and that's something that we all need to look at, we need to make that turn into a more sustainable business. So we would be looking also to move more into LNG as a transition fuel. We are confirmed in a few projects there. We will be putting more focus on biofuels, as I mentioned a little earlier, and we're going to tip our toe into the pool of hydrogen. Not massively yet, but we need to understand what it does for the industry, what it does for the infrastructure companies like us. And lastly, we have, with the support of our shareholders, and also in view of the China theme, we have been able in COVID times to close a deal in China in 2020. Right. Where we are going to invest also now more into chemicals. So I think the diversification outside of hydrocarbons is kind of what we are aspired to do. In addition to the let's say, continue to invest in oil storage where there is a functional need. So never, ever only on the basis of a future market structure.
And I mean, you mentioned LNG. There has been a lot of talk about that as a potential bunker fuel. Obviously, it's there. It's on paper. It's doable. But there's also been arguments against the safety of that, functionally at ports, and the sort of the commercial viability of it as well. Do you think that will take off any time in the next sort of year or two, or is that still sort of long term, along with the hydrogen solution and other modes of fuel?
Well, tough for me to gauge. The projects that we are involved in are less on bunker fuels from LNG, but more to serve the energy needs in countries. We have been doing studies in Fujairah in the past and also in Europe for bunker fuels. But like you said, the time was not right to do it at the time. And we are not involved in any bunker LNG project as we speak.
And what about the floating storage outlook for the year ahead? That must have dissipated probably a bit last year, but where is that? Where does that stand today?
Well, we know that there was quite a bit of, and whenever there's stock building, you get floating storage up. I think, and it has been specifically in crude and also in middle distillates. We have seen that coming down quite a bit. I think the number that I got back is that it is now about 40 million barrels floating storage, which was about 100 million barrels before. And that is probably normal. We always have seen some floating storage. I think floating storage is never a real competitor to when you look at flexible terminals, because you can't do blending as good as you want, and it has limitations. And from my perspective, and that's more a message to ports around the world, you don't want offshore, let's say, a lot of manipulations being done on products. You want to do that in a secured environment, in a safe environment, in the terminal on land.
Rob, just one more question. You mentioned your acquisition in China that you made earlier this year, I believe in May, and that is a sort of a chemicals-focused acquisition, and that certainly, from the refining sector, is certainly looking to become more integrated on that front as well. A lot of refiners are thinking that is the way forward. They can't just rely on other fuels. They have to invest more in the petchem side of the business and integrate. What else is on your horizon in terms of acquisitions? I mean, in terms of geography, you're across 5 continents already. It's a first acquisition in China. Is that a trend you plan to continue? Do you need more capacity to add to your storage?
Well, so the move into China has been a very deliberate strategy to start, and this is kind of our first terminal into China. And with this, we start to roll out a more bigger ambition to grow into chemicals. We have no aspiration to go into oil. That is, for us, it's too complicated, but too small to do that in China. But yes, we have, with the support of ADNOC and Vitol and RVM, we've now decided to move into chemicals in parts of the world, very specific parts, Southeast Asia, China, and Europe. And we have also embarked on making sure that we are going to get the first projects completed into LNG. But China, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East for us are still very much growth areas for the future.
Rob, yes, thank you very much, CEO of VTTI. Thank you and congratulations again on your Aramco.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
It's been a pleasure to have you at the forum, and do stay tuned in and stay on camera. I'm going to hand over to Sean Evers now to conduct the Middle East panel and invite his guests. Thank you very much, Rob, and over to you, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
Sean, we can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Thank you.
before we invite the other panelists, Rob, and congratulations, to join us, I wanted to give the audience an opportunity to give us their view on the outlook for the year ahead when it comes to oil prices. So if we could bring up the first survey question and invite everybody to give us their outlook. It's not a complicated question, but it's certainly a difficult answer. What will be the average price of Brent crude oil in 2021? 40, 50, 60, or 70? Everybody gets the chance to give us their pennies worth on that. So just pick which one you think it is, press the little circle, and you will join in the answer. So please, everybody, if you could submit your answer to that survey question, that would be very useful. Let me now invite our other panelists to come and join us on the stage. I'd ask Mr. Captain Musa Murad to come back on camera and on microphone, Managing Director, of course, of Port of Fujairah. I would also invite Lars Liebig, Managing Director of Uniper DMCC, also to come on camera. Thank you, Lars. And Captain Salam Al-Moudi, Director of the Fujairah Oil Industry Zone, FOIS. Captain Salam, if you would also join us on camera for that panel discussion to really take a focused look on Fujairah in this beginning of 2021. As the question says for the topic of this session, the outlook for Fujairah to emerge as a global energy trading hub in 2021. And we have some of the key players, of course, of Fujairah on this session. FOIS, which manages all of the terminal business, obviously Captain Musa with the port, and Robert, as we know, operating VTTI, and Lars, Uniper, has the operating the refinery there of low sulfur fuel oil bunker. So before we kick in, let's see what the answer to our survey question is. If we have everybody's views on where oil prices are for the year ahead. Okay, 48%, around $50 a barrel. Close to 60, didn't get as much. When we did this question in Asia this morning, there seemed to be more bullishness in Asia. $60 was the preference in Asia. Here in the Middle East, I think we're all feeling a little bit more sober, perhaps, although $50 only a few weeks ago would have seen as a bullish prediction. So that's how quickly times are changing. Let's welcome Captain Salam to join us with his opening thoughts about this subject. Where does Fujairah need to travel, do you think, Captain, regarding the achieving of becoming a global energy trading hub? We clearly have a lot of hard infrastructure. What do you see as the next sort of priority, next steps?
Well, Sean, I believe, first of all, thank you for hosting me today and Happy New Year to all the audience. It's a pleasure to be participating today. I believe Fujairah started the transition from a global logistical hub to be a fully integrated energy hub that includes trading. Fujairah has multiple factors that is advancing the Emirate transition to be among the other trading hubs of the world. And I would like to mention a few of them, starting with the location. As we all know, Fujairah is strategically located 70 nautical miles outside the Strait of Hormuz, which could contribute to the trade in many different aspects, such as safety, efficiency, running cost, and time savings for the trade. As you just mentioned, the infrastructure, the port of Fujairah has more than 12 jetties dedicated for oil handling, and the only VLCC jetty on the coast of the Indian Ocean, which serves a great value for the future of crude handling and trading. Second VLCC jetty could be added in relatively short time as all the preliminary infrastructure are in place. Storage-wise, which is a very key ingredient for any energy or trading hub of the world. Storage-wise, as you know, FOIS hosts the Middle East, largest commercial storage capacity for refined oil product, which is a key element for trading. Again, one important element we've been focusing on is the transparency. Since 2017, we are publishing weekly market information in partnership with S&P Global Platts, which helps market participants to better understand the market trends of Fujairah. I see that on the technology front, we are utilizing the latest available technology for us, which is the blockchain technology, for sharing the inventory data to the public to ensure accuracy, integrity, and credibility of the data. Again, volumes and trade, once more, we have a good mix of active trading companies that includes Aramco, Vitol, ADNOC, ENOC, and other IOCs. All in all, in my opinion, we are seeing and expecting 2021 to be a year of continued growth for Fujairah and the market. Needless to mention the latest announcement of the Murban oil futures contracts and what it means for Fujairah per se. The agreement between Port of Fujairah and Abu Dhabi ports to further enhance the Emirate capabilities and container trade, as well as adding to that Ittihad Rail, all of which I consider as a very healthy indicators of the organic growth of the area. So, well, in summary, this is how I see us going 2021 and beyond.
It's certainly a significant journey being made, and the outlook, as you mentioned, for the year ahead. We had the earlier session with ADNOC and the ICE exchange, which is obviously a big factor for Fujairah, given that the physical settlement of the Murban contract will be in Fujairah. Let's bring in Lars Liebig of Uniper Energy. Lars, your thoughts on the topic, outlook for Fujairah. Clearly the physical infrastructure is substantial and has been significant, and you have been with Uniper Energy a big part of that. What is the next steps, do you think, that in order to emerge again to that sort of global stature of Singapore, Rotterdam?
Yeah, thanks, Sean, for having me, and Happy New Year to everybody. I think all the points Captain Salem mentioned, of course, they're right. But I would like to point on one specific topic which is relevant in Fujairah, and that's our experience, how we came here and how we have been growing over the years. Remember, we came 2015 with a different business case. So our plan was to install a refinery here to produce 0.1% straight run fuel oil and then serve the SECA market in Singapore and in Europe from here. At that time, it wasn't clear that the 0.5% would be introduced January 2020. It was 25 in discussion, or even not coming at all. Of course, we were hoping for it, but it wasn't clear at this stage. So when we came, we had to design our requirements in terms of tankage and infrastructure to this 0.1 business case. And then when it became clear IMO 0.5 will come, we had to adjust. And we, towards 2020, we saw already then demand rising for our products. And we have more than tripled, I think, the volume from 2018 to 19. And again, we have doubled it from 2019 to 2020. So we had a tremendous growth, and we have been selling in 2020 more than 5 million tons, and most of that in Fujairah. And
on that point, did 2020, given the global pandemic and everything, did it act as any kind of a derailing of Fujairah's progression, or did it indeed do the opposite and sort of bring it into its own in some regards under this moment of stress?
Yeah, let me come to this. What I wanted to point out is the growth we have been going through was, in my view, only possible in that short period of time because of the specific setup Fujairah has in terms of interconnectivity between terminals. We were able to contract extra storage in different terminals, and we have been operating out of 3, sometimes 4 different terminals, and we can see it as one side of operation, which makes it easy for us to adjust, scale up or down depending on market needs. And that is a specific advantage Fujairah has, in my view. Imagine we had built that refinery in an onshore terminal in Singapore, and then we have put a specific amount of tanks in place, and then quickly want to scale up. You can't have new build ready in a few months. It takes years. So the only option is then to contract in other terminals and have cross-border shipments, which are costly. So in the long run, you have to build your facility according to your needs, whereas in Fujairah, it's a lot more flexible to scale on short notice. So I think that has benefited us a lot, and ultimately also Fujairah Port and all the customers we are serving, because it meant a smooth transition into IMO at competitive price levels. So I think that is an important step, and that is something Fujairah, in my view, has to maintain, and I'm sure will maintain and build upon, and that is going forward, probably also the recipe for the future when we talk about potentially new products coming in over the time. I mean, Rob correctly mentioned biofuels will play a role in my view, and also hydrogen for sure. It's not a short-term thing, but it will come. And I think, Fujairah needs to think about how to establish itself in a similar way as it did for conventional oil for those new products. And I think every other aspect, Captain Salem mentioned, the geographical location, of course, is very good. So I think there are a lot of ingredients which are, which will help Fujairah grow even further. And one other, just a quick remark, one other, I think very important, experience we had was around permitting. I mean, if you put an investment down in a certain location, permitting plays a massive role, and that has been also tremendously well managed from all sides. So putting an investment requires, relatively easy or straightforward permitting processes, and also a geographical security and stability. And that, of course, is also something which we have experienced so far, despite, some interruptions we have all experienced over the years. But I think Fujairah has shown, it can be recognized as a very stable port and operations hub.
And very customer focused, I'd have to say, in that respect. Let's bring in the survey question 2 before getting Captain Moose's thoughts on the topic. Survey question 2 sets up for Captain Musa. What is more important as a priority next step for Fujairah to emerge as a global energy trading hub? Expand the soft infrastructure or expand the hard infrastructure? Next step. So really obviously all of the above is certainly the thing, but from a point of view of what you think is the priority, we've got a next step. As we know, ADNOC is building 42 million barrel storage of crude oil caverns in the mountains of Fujairah. The port has obviously in the recent years given us a VLCC jetty and so forth. But what is the more important as priority next step for Fujairah? Soft infrastructure or hard? Welcome your views on that, and we will ask Captain Musa. Welcome your thoughts on that question, and also coming out of 2020, a great challenge faced by the port of Fujairah. Everything seemed to go relatively well. What do you take away from 2020? What did you learn about your systems and operations?
Thank you, Sean. I think most of the things they already spoken, Salem and Lars about it, and Robert about Fujairah, but let me to focus what is the ministry focusing on. This is where I am planned always my future in Fujairah. When His Excellency Suhail mentioned that they're going to continue OPEC plus, that is sort of for me is sort of advantage. We hope that is also the plus one will join at the OPEC. As the strong as OPEC plus, as the strong, we provide a facility at Fujairah. Second thing also, when Salmin mentioned the good thing that is Marban, they are not the only one they're dealing with their customer. 7 of the customer, and they're going to benchmark Marban and Fujairah. That is also a good news for me. That means the customer, their customer, they should lease a tank here, or they can build we are going to build on it. So your question, I can do both in soft and also in the hard. What I mean in hard, we know it's a lot of studies now is going on in ADNOC on the trading their crude, and then the same thing, their project with their partner, and then they're going to utilize the land they used to have with IBEC. A lot of study they're doing how they're going to utilize that land at the trading, and the same time they're looking seriously on the study and the feed, how they can transfer all the way products from Ruwais to Fujairah. Is it by ships? Is it by a pipeline? All these things putting a pressure on me. What can I do with the jetty? When I going to add, how many jetty I go to add? Do I need to add VCC? We are asking them now to what the capacity you're going to add to Fujairah. Is if they answer me this, then I can build, because I don't want also to disturb my customer. This is the main thing for me. The customer that is
in terms of ADNOC's connectivity with the port and the manifold system, has that been connected to the ADNOC storage and the manifold system? Is that being constructed?
This is a good question. Yes, they already started connected, and they call it fast track. And hopefully by September, October, they're going to join the MM1. If they join the Matrix 1, then they have a freedom to join OJDT plus the VLCC. This is where the advantage of Fujairah, we are luckily sharing the risk. This is where we're sharing the risk with our partner. And we're going to continue sharing that by building jetties and adding more infrastructure, and then they are building tanks at the demands required. So the advantage of Fujairah is sharing the risk with their customer.
What about the soft infrastructure that's in that question? Inevitably, as Captain Salam mentioned, a few years ago, there was the publishing. You started to publish the weekly inventory data every Wednesday. It's published on S&P Global Platts. But what other data points can come forward, will come forward?
I think that we already have several meetings with Platts, with Captain Salam, and the next one is going to be the bunkering. The bunkering statistic is going to be also produced by January, February this year, plus whichever is will benefit our customer, global customer. So this is going to be by end of this month or beginning of February, we're going to be established at bunkering, plus some information that could be benefit for our customers.
So that will be bunkering data weekly, monthly, how often?
This is the scenario we're talking with it. This is going to be monthly or weekly, which is one
something.
But
it's coming, which is obviously very positive for the market.
That's right.
Let's get the result of that survey question before bringing Robert back into the conversation. What is more important as a priority next step for Fujairah to emerge, expand the soft infrastructure of the 200 people logged in? That's 55% are saying expand the soft infrastructure. Of course, hard is always important, but we all need to do better on soft right across the region. Rob, your responsibility now as the WISE Award winner and have joined the echelons of that exclusive group. What's Fujairah's next big idea, do you think? We've talked about LNG over the years. We've talked about the idea of a refinery. Obviously, we have now the Murban contract coming and the settlement in Fujairah. But what, as a person who's been there for a very long time, instrumental, you and Chris Bake, probably, it's hard to pick two other people that have partnered with Captain Musa and Captain Salam and their colleagues from the international community. What's the next big idea, do you think, that Fujairah should be thinking about?
Well, Sean, firstly, it is true. I've been there a long time with Chris, but I think what we have been able to do, and that obviously Vitol and Uniper have made some bold investments in Fujairah over time. I think from an infrastructure perspective, Fujairah is really a great port. They have done a lot of development over the years. They have done a lot of upfront, ahead of the Pact investments in infrastructure, in the marine side, in the manifold. But for me, I think the challenge that we all face is that we need to find ways to stay as efficient as we can in the port together. And you can't do that as one single party. You need to do that hand in hand with voice, with the port and all the partners. Because, you know, Fujairah is not an entity in its own. It's competing against other countries in the region. And we need to be very diligent that we keep this port as flexible and as efficient as we can, and look at what is the next step. And to that question, I think the things that we need to jointly look at is, what do we do if indeed Fujairah becomes a global trading hub? Then you attract a lot of other interest from financial parties, as an example, and they look at different metrics. They don't only look at trade, they look also at sustainability. They look at how you run your ports in terms of emission controls, in terms of solar alternative energy sources. And I think that is still a little bit in the early days of development. And I think that is one of the things that together we need to look at in Fujairah, how we can progress investments in that. And yes, there's hydrogen out there, but hydrogen for me is a little bit out still. But for all the parties in Fujairah, in order to get that, to understand it and get a grip on it, on the impact, we need to start working on it now. And that is something, for me, it's an invitation to look at, and I do that with my management team in Fujairah, but also with Captain Musa and Captain Salim to look at the future.
Rob, what do you think is missing in the jigsaw puzzle that would be sufficient, would create the incentive to bring LNG into the mix? It's been looked at a number of times. What do you think is the missing piece that makes that viable?
Sean, at the time when we looked at it, we just couldn't make the numbers work. It was, and maybe it was the wrong time. And we should do it again, the exercise, but we just couldn't make the numbers work from a bunkering perspective. And right. I think from an infrastructure point of view, at the time, it was also where do you get your LNG vessels landed? Because that was a challenge, I think, Captain Musa at the time for the port. So if you want to do that, you need to probably do that at a different location. And that investment is quite significant then to accommodate LNG vessels into Fujairah.
Captain Salim, your thoughts on that in terms of the next big idea? I mean, you're very blessed in Fujairah to have pretty wise leadership with His Royal Highness. The next big idea, you've got some big land, still some spots there. You obviously have the ADNOC crude oil storage coming online in the next year or two. That is 42 million barrels of extra crude oil storage in Fujairah. Is the future of Fujairah crude oil rather than products?
I think Fujairah is going, like the first evolution of Fujairah was, we started as a bunkering port. Captain Musa and Rob, who's been here long before me, I think they can help me out. We started as a small bunkering port. That has grew over time. We are classified among the 3 top bunkering ports of the world, if not the second. After that, we started developing the storage side. Not necessarily because bunkering today is 10% out of what we do in Fujairah. Many people, label Fujairah as a bunkering port. Yes, it is, but it is above and more. It's a storage area and logistical area. So that was, I would say, the second evolution of Fujairah, and I think the third one is coming in terms of a crude and diversification. I agree with Rob. We've been looking at LNG, we've been looking at LPGs, we've been looking at a different type of, possible or potential future marine fuels to be supplied to the ships. In a hard infrastructure perspective, I believe the government been doing a really good job staying ahead of the market. And a classic example would be, the VLCC jetty, which it's in a similar context as the Uniper investment in their refinery for the IMO 2020. If I would draw a similarity there. Soft infrastructure is very much important, it's very much required. We've been working on it. We have different plans, some of them being shared by Captain Musa, which is adding new data sets to the existing portfolio of inventory data. We'll see how that materializes. All in all, I think it's a balanced approach between developing the hard infrastructure and the soft infrastructure. I would like to pick up on a point said by Robert as well. The efficiency of the port. Again, I believe as efficiency, we've been doing a really good job in Port of Fujairah and in Fujairah in general. The terminals are really performing, sharing a communal infrastructure between 16 different terminals or 15 different terminals. We have a very, I would say, market conform, if not a strict KPIs that need to be complied to maintain the attractiveness of Port of Fujairah for traders to keep visiting and further enhance their business.
I was just going to bring up the last survey question before bringing Lars into that comment. The last survey question is addressing this issue of crude oil. With the construction of ADNOC's 42 million barrel storage cavern, Fujairah is set to become the biggest crude oil storage hub east of Suez. Agree or disagree? We had earlier in the Asia section of the forum today, Singapore essentially saying, we're out of the crude oil storage business. So is this going to be a game changer for establishing Fujairah as the center of crude oil storage east of Suez, commercial storage? Lars, one of the important parts of any ecosystem evolving, and Fujairah no exception, is that the existing residents, the existing corporates operating there, grow their footprint, grow their activities. And from the point of view of Uniper Energy, how do you see that in terms of, obviously you've had some very, you were visionary 5 years ago at 0.5, 0.1 before the IMO was really on anybody's radar. What do you think can be, or is there a growth that you see as part of that ecosystem?
Well, I mean, we talked about different products which might get into demand over the years, and I think Rob also said it's a bit too early to really say what is the silver bullet at this point. It will be.
But somebody's going to have to take the bite of the cherry, right? Like you guys have done in the past.
Oh, and I think it has to be a mix, and some people will have to invest in, let's say, more hydrogen-based projects, and some others might choose something else, or maybe LNG, and maybe that is the recipe for Fujairah as a hub, to have this type of diversification, that you find not only one product or trading business, but you have multiple anchors, if you want. Whatever we do in Fujairah will mean a tremendous amount of investments for sure. Going away from conventional oil into alternatives, of course, will cost a lot of money, and none of those is really in the money, obviously, at this stage. So it will have to be, you have to risk some investments, as we did also, right? And for some, it will pay off, and I'm sure it will in the long run. And I think, we have seen so many, over the last 2 years, so much talking about all these different products, hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, green, blue methanol, and all of that. We are at a stage, I think, where it's about to sit together and really go through how those projects can be realized. And I'm sure it's already happening within Uniper. We have several projects, kickoff projects on this way. And I think in Fujairah, it will happen soon as well. People will come together, because some of those investments are just too big for just one entity to handle. I think it will be a combination of joint efforts really to make it work. But it doesn't need to be only, one project. It can be multiples, and I think that might be also the benefit in the long run.
Well, we have as our partner in terms of the Aramco Trading Awards, Aramco Trading, part of the world's biggest oil company, now has set up the first trading desk in Fujairah with something to close to, I think, up to 30 traders, but capacity there. Captain Musa, looking very specifically at the year ahead, we're in January. You mentioned some soft data points maybe coming in February on bunkering. We have the Murban contract in March and the launch of that, and will bring attention to Fujairah. We also have the recent announcement in the last week of the rapprochement with our neighbor Qatar. And of course, when that happened a few years ago, that was a big hit on your business because Qatar and the shipping was a big customer of yours. How does that look for you? Is that potentially bring back trade for the ports in terms of your marine services?
Of course, that is good news for all the sea country. This conflict for Fujairah, definitely when Qatarian LNG ships left here, we lost about 20%. So the 20% bunkering definitely will come back to Fujairah, and they started actually inquiring. Plus, the aggregate business already started stamping in, so that is good news for us. But let me to speak about what also Lars spoke about, the LNG. LNG, we talked a long time about LNG, so it's a sort of opportunity, but it's sort of going to be a win-win situation. Today in Fujairah, we're not looking at the offshore business at LNG, we're looking for something permanent. To do a permanent, if the company itself cannot do it, they can't work as a partner together with the ADNOC, with the PTTI, WOBAC, how they can make a consortium between them and serve the Emirate of Fujairah, the company that is available in Fujairah, cement factory, and then part of it is going to be bunkering, and we don't know what will happen in the bunkering. Is going to be bunkering as LNG, or is going to be hydrogen? Anything within the 5 years or 10 years could change. But the next step for us is the crude, definitely. This is what we are aiming, the crude. So the project is, we have more than enough. So that's why I'm always repeating, we don't want to disturb our people. We can add small, but the focus on us, the crude. And when ADNOC adding the 42, definitely we're going to be #1 storage in the world. We reach about 70 million. 70 million, automatically they keep you #1 storage on the world. But the things we require from our people also, not from our side, from Pact people that we are, and Aramco and ADNOC, to help us in benchmark the projects. So we are proud that they already benchmarked Marmon the crude, but also the quantity that we have in Fujairah. But we need with their assistance to help us in benchmarking Fujairah in place of using other people. This is what is my aim.
Great. Yeah, that's a part of the soft infrastructure, the transparency that would support the creation of a Middle East fuel oil products benchmark off of Fujairah. Let's bring up the survey result and give Captain Salam the last word. There's a whopping way to close out, Captain. If you were wondering what's your next direction, it seems certainly crude oil is a big part of it. Your closing thoughts, Captain, and particularly in the year ahead, where things should go. Hopefully will go.
Thank you, Sean. I think the results are very obvious. We see more interest and focus on crude, ADNOC being the main player here in Fujairah, and with their ongoing project of the 42 million barrels. Adding to that, as you rightly mentioned, we see as well the start, or an increased importance of Fujairah to be a place of a trade. A classic example is Aramco opening their second global office here in Fujairah. That comes with, hopefully a good future and potential in the future. We have the VTOLs; they are very active in here. For the year ahead, I think again we will see some more crude projects happening here in Fujairah, aside of what is existing or underbuilt. We've been discussing this with our customers. We are looking for, I join my hands with Captain Musa, maybe we can do some more trades going through Fujairah, more volumes going through Fujairah. That will advance our journey to be, a global trading hub, or a trading hub of the world. Yeah. Adding to that, I think, the pricing, the individual prices assessment has been out for some time. So again, without the support of our NOCs and the IOCs and different trading houses that are actually trading and storing within Fujairah without their support and actually start utilizing those numbers, I think we will take a longer time without them. So we do urge and ask for their support in this matter, because it will benefit.
And in that regard, you're talking about the Fujairah price assessments for fuel oil, yeah.
So I would like to leave the audience with these thoughts.
Yes. Well, I will wrap up and say we will all reconvene on October 5th, inshallah, in Fujairah for the return of the annual Energy Markets Forum, the Gulf Intelligence Energy Markets Forum, the 10th one. This is the 11th UAE Energy Forum that we do in Abu Dhabi. But of course, Fujairah Forum every year in the fourth quarter, early October 5th. Mark your calendar. Vaccine allowing, we will all be there. Robert, thank you so much. And again, congratulations. Lars, thank you very much for joining us. Captain Salam and Captain Musa, congratulations on all your achievements in Fujairah and continue the great work. I'm sure 2021 will be a breakthrough year for Fujairah. And thank you for everybody who has joined us on this session. We are now going to close and move to our Middle East round tables. There will be 3 of them. Please choose which one you'd like to attend, and we will see you at the round tables. All the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.